There, and welcome back to Vowel Ventures. This is part 2 of our Vowellhala off-grid solar system design video. In the first part we covered the basic math, the number crunching, how we came up with the size of the system, how we came up with the angles we're going to mount the panels at using the angle or the altitude of the sun during the winter solstice. So now that we have that all out of the way, let's move on to a bit more entertaining part. So I know I can produce the power, I know how many panels it takes, but there's another challenge. Snowfall is defeated. Snow is no longer a problem. The panels are mounted vertically. They will not accumulate. They might get some frost. They can burn off. But I decided to build this warehouse in the middle of a forest, an old growth forest that has never had a tree cut other than maybe an occasional campfire. There's no roads in it. There was one old trail in it. Nothing. To make matters worse, all the area around the property is about 80 feet higher in elevation. So I'm not even at the top of a hill. I am literally in a hole in a forest, in an area that only has the sun 5 degrees above the horizon. This led to a huge challenge. I needed to know how far back to set the building from the property line in order to cut enough trees. Since the sun is basically coming in horizontally, I need a long run to the building of no trees to not have shade hit the panels. Using this tool, we'll look at today. It's December 3rd. At noon, and representing, I think we are showing roughly, oh yeah, I made the computer mad. Yeah, if I remember right, we were roughly 410, 420 feet, give or take. You can see here, if I zoom in a little bit, you can see the solar panels, and this is representative of the top of the trees. I don't know if this is where the top of the trees officially are, because I don't know how tall the trees really are, and I'm not 100% certain if I got my cut as far south as I want. I don't think it is. I think I can go some more. Using SketchUp, I was able to import satellite imagery, GPS locations, all that kind of good stuff of our property. That is represented here by all the trees and this road in. This is the original clearing I cut where I thought I was going to build a shop. This is the larger clearing I cut where we built the shop. Using SketchUp, I made a 3D model of the building represented by the building. This white pie-shaped cut is essentially our lawn. Down here along the edge is give or take a little bit where our south property line is. I found some three-dimensional spruce trees averaging about 47 feet tall that I could import. Using this, I can come over here, change this to the 21st. Good old winter solstice, which honestly over the last few years has become my most important date of the year. Now, you can see how I screwed up. I am putting it out there to the entire YouTube world and community. I messed up. You can think, but Ryan, the whole point of all this when you designed it was to get your building far enough back, have the lawn cut big enough. The whole point of this tool was to show you where to put the building so you did not have shade on the panels. This is true. I highly recommend using this tool to figure out where to put your building for your project. Unfortunately, I did not figure out this part of SketchUp until after I built the building. And then I figured, hey, I want to see how well I did and it's going to work, and there's my result. You see lots of shading on the bottom panels. So across these rows, that is 6.5 kilowatt hour power lost on the solstice. The mid row shows about half the amount of shading or so. 6.5 kilowatt hour. 6.5 kW worth of panels. Might be doing good to put out 1,000 if I'm lucky. The top row looks like it's good to go, as long as the trees are not taller than 47 feet tall. There is a trick to this. Not only do I screw up by using the tool after I built the building, this last year up there, last fall when I was trying to finish cutting the lawn, I kind of made a mistake in that I really, really like birch trees. I think they're gorgeous. I think they're just phenomenal trees to look at. They're beautiful. The sun hits them in the spring and they just glow an iridescent bright green. In the fall, they're the most prevalent, abundant, beautiful gold color leaves that we have. They're big, they're tall, at least in our forest they are. I couldn't bring myself to cut them down. I figured, they're deciduous trees. The leaves will fall off, top branches are really, really skinny, shouldn't cause a problem. In a lot of respects, I was correct in that thinking. In other respects, I wasn't. One thing I failed to think of is that while I'm worried about these 47-foot on average tall spruce trees causing lots of shading, these big birch trees that are anywhere from 10 to 18 inches in diameter at the base, I have some that are actually closer to 20 to 24 inches in diameter at the base, actually are closer to 70 to 80 feet tall. Meaning that at the 47-foot height, they're still pretty thick and they still have some good branches on them. When I go to the model and I decided to put in some sample birch trees, I set them give or take where they are in the property. There's actually a few that are closer than this. There's a lot that are behind it. I don't think I have more than 18, maybe 24 birch trees left standing. But that's the only trees left standing in this area are the birch trees. When I throw a few in the model at roughly 200 feet back, give or take, all of a sudden we see a bunch of shading all the way up. I had a feeling I would get some. Now, these birch trees obviously are showing their leaves, their faces, representative surfaces. I'm not going to have as thick a cluster of shadow as this, obviously, and it shows. My solar production is actually doing well. Last year this time of day, last year on December 3rd, my system was shut down. It was dead. Nothing. Could not charge. It managed to produce enough to turn the system back on the 5th for about an hour, and then it shut down and was dead again. Would not come back to life. I actually had to fly up there on the 10th, maybe it was the 9th, and spend 6 to 8 hours trying to warm up the batteries enough to reset them so that they would accept charge, wire in the generator, get it on the auto start, get everything working again. Spent probably 4 or 5 hours or 6 hours running that generator to charge the batteries enough to bring everything on, check all the systems, bring it back to life. That said, after cutting the lawn, even leaving the birch trees, I'm at 100%. December 3rd, my batteries are 100%. Actually today I think they're about 95. We'll check later. I can do that. I'll throw it in here, show you what the cloud-based monitoring system it looks like. Anyway, batteries are good to go. The cut made a world of difference. I am not producing anywhere near the peaks that I would expect to. Part of it is because of clouds, part of it is because of snowfall, part of it is because of those stinking birch trees that I love, which sadly will have to come down. Fortunately, they are the best, highest thermal mass firewood that we have. They'll get put to good use. Part of it is because my property line needs to get pushed south about another 80 feet, which is easier than trying to push my building north 80 feet. Unfortunately, to push my property line south 80 feet means I have to buy the 40-acre parcel south of me, so that might take a while. It's actually easier for me to build the pole barn to the north, use this tool ahead of time this time, because I like to think I learned from my mistakes, and set up 3 or 4 more arrays on it. I'm a geek. I think that's fun. That sounds like a grand family vacation to me. The other nice thing about this tool, now that I've just completely depressed myself, showed that my idea didn't work, I built the building too close to the south property line, I left the most beautiful trees in the forest because I couldn't bear the thought of cutting them down, and they're causing me problems. The nice thing is that I can come over here, change this date. We'll put it back to today, December 3rd. We'll see what it looks like. I haven't actually done this ahead of time. You can see where I am still be able to produce some power. The birch trees are still messing with me, but not that bad. If we make this, let's say, November, we'll do this every couple weeks. And of course, the computer's going to take its time to do it because I made the complex model. This is about right. Through November, I was actually seeing some high peak outputs, which tells me that the birch trees aren't causing this much problem. But again, I don't have a wintertime birch tree model to represent what's going on. Now, like I said, I have 21 more panels, and I have every intention of putting them on. I don't know if I'll do it this summer or if I'll do it next summer or when I do it, but I do have them. They will go on. I can show you what the effect will be here. Let's just go throw some solar panel rails on the building real quick and throw the next row of panels up there. With these panels up here at the top, they'll stick up above the building about 2.5 feet or so, maybe 2 feet. So it kind of acts as a small parapet fence and add another 6.5 kilowatt to the system. By changing the date back to the solstice, you can see how where the shadows actually do mess with the bottom two arrays, and the 3 panels dedicated to these 3 panels are dedicated to the travel trailer, our home away from home for now. Later on they may come off, they may not, I don't know, but they are on in such a fashion that I can remove them. It won't leave long rails hanging down or anything like that. I can remove them, have a straight line all the way across. Anyway, if I add the 4th array, now I'm back up to the potential of 13 kW in the clear on the solstice. If I kick this up to, let's say, 1 p.m., get no problem. And actually, according to this, if 1 p.m. is truly celestial noon on the solstice, we should be good to go. We should be close. Next summer, I'll try to pin it down and get better measurements. I have a surveyor friend that's going to mark my south property line so I know how much more I can cut to get right up to it for this distance. Even though I did mess up, left the birch tree standing, left the building, or rather built the building too close to the property line, after cutting this south lawn, which right now is roughly 105,000 square feet, give or take, 2.5 acres. There's actually a couple dozen trees in here, or so. After those mistakes, I still accomplished my goal. My batteries are alive. My generators only run 30 minutes so far in the last 2 weeks, 15 minutes per Saturday, for nothing more than exercising and 15-20 minutes, whatever it is, charging runtime to make sure the starter battery is fine, the main battery in it. It is fully automated. The batteries are telling the Sol-Ark their accurate state of charge. You know what? Let's show you that website now. Alright, plant overview. This is the cloud-based website, whatever, to monitor the system. Looking at the output today, it has not been sunny, it has not been clear. I have no idea if this is accurate temperature or not. The only thing I know is that the sunrise and the sunset times are pretty close. Right now it shows I'm making 578 watts, or 2.9% of my capability. Right now it is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or 3:08, 3:10, about 40 minutes away from sunset. The batteries right now, if you look at where the cursor is, are at 94%. Scrolling down, I have made a total of 4.2 kilowatt hour for the day. On average, so far I've needed roughly 6 kilowatt hour per day production for 24 hours of use. Meaning from the time the sun goes down or the system stops charging to the next time it stops charging, I need 6 to 6.2 kilowatt hour of production to maintain the batteries at 100%. It goes down, recharges, sits there at 100%, starts to go down again. This is with the system idle. Moving down, you can see where I had a spike here. The dark purple, blue, call it what you will, indigo, I don't know. This is the line. You can see all night it is above the 0 line, meaning it is discharging. Right now I have 300 watts of power coming out of the batteries. That might be a heater cycling on, could be the freezer for the refrigerator, number of things. So on average I'm running about 200 watt continuous until sunrise, and then you'll see that battery number start to switch to negative, meaning it's charging. Well, you don't see a big spike in solar production, the green line, the PV output. This line stays fairly flat and low. This is what's telling me that we don't have good clear skies up there right now. But we have a bunch of battery charging. This is where the generator kicked on, ran for 15 minutes to exercise, charge the battery, make sure there's a system test. While it's doing that, if the batteries are below a certain point, it'll go ahead and take some power from it. It is a 7200 watt peak, 6000 watt continuous generator. I have it set in the software to only let it take about 5000 watts, run at about 80%. And today it only took 3800 from it. The generator doesn't just put power into the system takes what it wants. So it actually varies the load on the generator depending on demands. It ran for the 15 minutes, said, we don't really need you, the batteries aren't low enough. Right now they're still showing 81%. We'll let you shut off. A little bit later, we got a little bit of, call it a clear spot in the clouds, overcast, whatever. Production popped up to 2400. Battery charge got up to a peak of about 94%. First and immediate thought is, I'm in trouble. This system will not do what I want when we're living there off-grid full time. Right now, by these numbers, you're right, it won't. But again, that is because it's too close to the south property line. That is because I left the trees in place, and they will come down, and there could be frost, it could be gray, it could be whatever. But again, we're only a couple weeks away from the solstice. I already knew by the PV watts calculation that this December is going to be a rough month. It's not a problem. If you look at the graph from yesterday, we'll kick it back a day, I have a lot more time with it up in the charging range. It actually produced 8 kilowatt hour this day, well, yesterday, to make up for the day before. The day before, it had a fairly long charging window. My 3-hour charging window, give or take, brought it up to 98%. And the day before that, it was a pretty bad dark day. Might have even been snowing. Probably was snowing. The highest output we made was 735 watts on a 19,845 system. That's pretty sad. But by having a massive system, when the sky does clear up, you're able to start making up for the previous day or 2 or 3. And that's also why you want a fairly big battery bank. Going back into mid-November, I think it was somewhere around here. On November 13th, you can see here, peak of the power, 260 watts. That's all I made that day. That is the peak. I barely made 1 kilowatt hour for the entire day, if I remember right. This was a apocalyptic dark day. It was probably really thick, heavy clouds, more than likely snowing. I think it actually did. And what's worse than that, if you look at the light blue line, state of charge. During sun power production times, we're barely putting any power in, 34 watts into the battery, state of charge is 59%. By the end of the day, it was down to 58%. By midnight, it was down to 45%. Meaning that the days before weren't a whole lot better. Peak power 2300, but not till 245. We ended the day 78%, meaning we did not make enough to replenish that day's consumption, 24 hours consumption. The day before, another bad day, never got really over 430 watts. Ended that day at 78%, floated down, floated down, floated down. Now, the next day, the 14th, is when I flew to California. Had to go over there for work. I sat in the airport for the 3 hours waiting to get on the plane, and by the time we started getting some production, the batteries were down to 31%. I have the generator programmed to start at 30%, but I had it disabled because I knew, according to the forecast, we're getting some clearer skies. Here you can see where we started at 31% as mentioned. 10:10 in the morning, we're already 520 watts. It's charging the battery 270 watts. Not a lot, right? Well, again, my clearing is cut at 160 degrees on the east side, a heading of 160 degrees at about, so it equates to about, give or take, 11:30. All of a sudden, at 11:30, the power output starts ramping up big time, and all of a sudden we go from essentially at 11:20, 1500 watts to 11:40 at almost 8,000 watts. And it sits up there floating up and down with small shadows, light clouds, who knows why. We peak at almost 9,000 watts, going up and down. And again, my understanding was that this day wasn't actually super clear. No clouds in the sky. There were still passing clouds, but they were light, not real dense and high altitude. But in a span of 3 hours, I made up 3.5 days, essentially, 3 full days and then some, of not being able to fully recharge the system. This day, I believe, if I remember right, we made 17 to 18 kilowatt hour for the entire day, hit our 100%, and it just sat there waiting for the next night. And then it stayed there, and it stayed there, and it stayed there, and off we went. And, we come back here to December, and that's what it was doing earlier as well. There will be times where, closer to the solstice, we have 3 or 4 days worth of snow. Yeah, the generator's going to have to start. That's not a big deal. That's what it's designed for. When I'm living up there, I'll build the pole barn. I'll keep expanding the system. That's one of the beauties of the Sol-Ark system. I can add microinverters to the east and west walls to produce even more power in the summer when the sun is straight to the east and straight to the west. I can connect a wind turbine or hydroelectric power if I want. I don't have water close enough nearby to do it, but I could. But I don't want wind turbines or hydroelectric power. They're a mechanical device that's going to require maintenance, bearings, fuel, oil, have to take it apart, work on it, put it back up. I want to stick to pure solar because it's as close to maintenance free as you can get without, and pretty much all you have to do is wash it on occasion, and even being vertical mounted, that's not very often. I've jumped over to the Sol-Ark website to show you where it is, www.sol-ark.com. On this website, you have everything they have available. They have 5K hybrid inverters, they have your 8Ks, they have the 12K, which I'm using, and now they have the new 15K. Right now, they've told me that officially I cannot parallel a 15K with my two 12Ks. That was my original idea of adding 3 more arrays on the pole barn, hook them into here, tie them to that, easy peasy, good to go, 3 inverters. There might be a way that we can figure it out through a workaround. Realistically, it'd be a lot easier, safer, and in some ways add a lot of redundancy plus more potential power production by adding 2 more 12Ks. Yep, that's a bunch more up front. I am essentially doubling the amount of solar I've already done. But I don't have to do it all at once. I can just hang one of these, put up however many more panels I can afford, then add to those panels and add to those panels until I fill up the MPPT port, the solar input port. But this has 2 of them in it. So then I can start adding more panels, more panels, more panels till I max out that new one. I could do it in 1 season if I'm lucky. I could do it in 2 or 3, 5 years. It doesn't matter. When this one is full, I can then add another one and continue adding panels to it. So essentially, the 4 arrays that are on my building, I can duplicate them on the pole barn and make my 49, 50, 52, whatever it ends up being kW potential. In which case, I'm good to go. And then I can add more for fun later on, or add some to the sheds or whatever, just because I'm an addict at this point. But when you're designing your system for off-grid, I highly recommend doing what you can to build the strongest foundation possible that is stackable and scalable. Don't necessarily start off with the lowest upfront cost, because you can a lot of times end up spending more in the long run by replacing it and then not being able to sell it or reuse it, and having lower production or lower capacity, or spending more time running generators and more time just generally performing maintenance on the system. Anyway, enough of all the jibber jabber. I hope you got something useful out of this video. Feel free to leave comments with questions on the website. I think it's under in the About section. I've never actually checked. Yeah, in the About section, there's an email address you can use to contact me if you have any questions. I also have links to sources of equipment that I like and use. I'm not sponsored. I'm not getting any kind of cut, no affiliation. I just really like their equipment and what they stand for. Thank you again for staying around, and there's going to be a small little bonus slideshow added onto the tail end of this showing the actual build of the system. I'll see you on the next video, and hopefully it's not me sitting in front of a computer just talking. Have a great day.